The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to this special Italian Wine Podcast broadcast. This episode is a recording off Clubhouse, the popular drop-in audio chat. This Clubhouse session was taken from the Wine Business Club and Italian Wine Club. Listen in as wine lovers and experts alike engage in some great conversation on a range of topics in wine. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinepodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. And remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Italian Wine Club on Clubhouse. This has been going on for some time now. How long, Leica?
I guess for about 2 years and more.
Oh, my goodness. Crazy, right? Because this is the episode number.
It's episode 144.
That's crazy. So it's been actually going on nearly 3 years now. So this is what we call the Ambassadors Corner. It's more of like a fireside chat style where one of our ambassadors get to interview their favorite Italian wine producer. And today we have Alan Kwok, who will be having this call with Luca Balbiano. Ciao, Alan.
Ciao, Stevie.
How are you?
Very well.
Where are you? There's a little bit of an echo. Where are you?
I'm at home.
You're at home. And what time is it now?
It is 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 p.m. Yeah, you were in Piemonte for some time. I saw like you were popping on my grid everywhere. What were you doing
I
in
was
Piemonte?
so I spent like 3 weeks in Piemonte. So I first visited a few producers, and then I went to Vinitaly and of course 5-star wines. And then afterwards, I led a tour of 21 people for the Knights of Alba around just Paolo and Barbaresco.
20? 21?
21, yeah.
Oh my goodness. All from Hong Kong?
All from Hong Kong.
That's a big delegation, buddy.
Yeah, it's too big. So we actually stay in the villa of the Scarpa and Monfiliero. So we booked the whole villa, and we just go around visiting producers, and we actually have a really unforgettable evening where we taste the Monfiliero Barolo from 18 producers. So we had 21 wines in total, and we invite 4 producers to speak with us. So that was really unforgettable. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm really jealous. One of my favorite producer is Burlotto Monfiliero.
Yes, we have 3 vintage of his Monfiliero. Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Listen, so for those of you, for our audience who are less familiar, Alan Kwok is a prominent member of our Italian wine community. He's not just an Italian wine expert. He is one of the most proactive members of our community with Alice Wang, and he is what we call an Italian wine expert, which means he is one of the top experts from Vinitaly International Academy. There are just a handful of them. In total, we're nearing about 400 certified Italian wine ambassadors to date. About 1,300 have gone through the course. And I believe there are only 13 Italian wine experts, and Alan Kwok from Hong Kong is one of them. So congratulations to them. Okay, that's for you, buddy. That's my special effect.
Thank you. I'm sweating.
Yeah. Alan, so tell everybody what you do in Hong Kong. Like, what is your day job, besides drinking and bringing a bunch of people to Piemonte?
I'm actually a wine importer, so I have a wine company called DECO Wines Limited. We have started this business since 2013.
And what are you importing mostly?
So I would say half of my portfolio is Italian, and I import from 18 regions out of 20 of Italy. The rest is France and also the rest of the world.
Okay. What is the current situation with the wine market in Hong Kong in
It's
general?
a little
Has
bit
it
slow at the moment, mainly because after COVID, that a lot of the local people decided that like to resume the traveling. There's not a lot of people in Hong Kong during the holidays or the weekend, and they prefer to go to mainland China or Thailand or Japan. So, but then in May, of course, business is picking up. But in March and April, it's quite slow at the moment.
right? Okay. And you are also what they call the master of Knights of Alba from Cavalieri del Tartufo e dei Vini di Alba. What does that mean?
It's an association started in Alba in 1967. I'm in charge of the delegation in Hong Kong, so we have around 120 members, and we have like 7 to 8 events per year just to promote the wine and food of Piemonte. And actually, Luca is one of the member in Alba. He just got inducted, I think, last year.
Well, congratulations. I'm actually a member. I think I'm a Cavaliere.
Yes,
But
yes, I saw your photo with Professor Shenser.
I think you, however, are the most active delegation for the Cavaliere because that's a lot, like doing 8 and 9 events a year.
We have
And
like
120 members, did you say?
So our event
That's
like
crazy.
ranges from 35 people to our annual event, which is like 300 people.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
listen, yeah, I
Okay.
can chat forever with you. Now let's give a little bit of love to your interviewee today, Luca Balbiano. So tell us why you've selected Luca as your producer on the call today.
Yes, I think everyone who studied VIA after 2020 knows Luca Balbiano if they pass the ambassador course because he is one of our reference producer, which Sarah and Harry mentioned in all the videos. So coming from the Piemonte background, then of course I start off with the Freisa. So by the way, Luca is the most famous producer of Freisa in Italy. So I start off with the Langhe Freisa. It was really a surprise in the video that like Sarah is talking about that the reference producer is actually from the region called Freisa di Cheiri, which at that time I don't even know where is it or like how does it taste like. So I figure out that I have to get a bottle, which I couldn't until last year. And what happened was that I was in Alba attending the Paolo and Barbaresco Academy. I met Scott Thomas, which is also a fellow ambassador. We mentioned the wines of Lucca. So being a little bit competitive, we challenge each other who can get a bottle of Barbiano Fraser. And of course, I'm ultra
That's
competitive. Yeah, I'm really. So then I just call up Luca. It was a Sunday. I said, can we, like, on a Saturday, I asked Luca, can we visit your winery and so on? He kindly said yes. So we visited the vineyard and did the tasting on a Sunday afternoon. And I got 3 bottles of the signature wine, which was in the vehicles. It's called Vigna della Regina. So I got 1 bottle for Scotch, and I opened 1 bottle when I was back in Hong Kong with my study group. And the last bottle, I'm actually having it tonight. And after
Oh,
this
that's so
trip,
nice. Oh,
Fabiano
Alan, you
became really one of my favorite producers.
yeah, you're so romantic. I didn't know that side about you. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So
on
next
to the
time I will give you a
show.
bottle as well.
Okay. Alrighty. On to the show. What are the learning objectives that we should expect from you today?
So an important observation I make is that the most popular and available region for grape is not necessarily the best region. So in this case, we are talking about Langhe Freisa. So I discovered that even before I went to the winery of Barbiano, so I opened a bottle of the Waldemauser Freisa, which is from Deltona. And that is so much better than like all the Freisas I try in Langhe. And Lucas wine is again special and maybe even more special than the Waldemauser one. So I think in this interview, I just want to point out that like don't just you have to be open-minded and like look into the history of the wine and so on. So in this interview, I really want to go into the history of Freisa and the region of Freisa di Cheiri, which is around the city Torino. And along the way, we'll go to this historical vineyard from the Savoy Queen, which is Cristina of France. And it is located on a beautiful hill which overlooks the city of Turin. I didn't realize it was so close to Turin until I went to the Mole in Torino, where you can see the vineyard from there. And this is one of the last and oldest urban vineyard in the world. And I'm really looking forward to Luca to share more information.
That sounds very exciting. You know, what we should do is actually like a blind tasting with Walter Massa and Luca next time. We'll do something like that. We'll think of something maybe at next Vinitaly. Okay. All right. Listen. So, Alan, I will leave the mic over to you now, and I will shut up. As you know, that rarely happens. I will mute myself and then perhaps come back towards the end. Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
Alrighty.
Okay, so a bit about Luca Balbiano. So Luca is the third generation owner of Cantine Balbiano, and like his father Francesco, he has the role of the president of consortium of DOC Freisa di Cheiri and Collina Torinese. He's also the founder and the honorary president of a worldwide association called Urban Vineyard Association. So more on that later. Welcome, Luca, and very million friends for being on this show.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Stevie. It's really an honor being here today. Thank you for inviting me.
So first of all, could you tell us where is your winery is located and its history?
Yeah, sure. We are in Andezzeno, which is a small village 20 kilometers far from Torino. We are in the cradle of Freisa, because Freisa, well, we're going to talk about that later, but it's really historic variety, talking about Piemonte, but the original land where Freisa was born is the Chieri area. The company, as you perfectly said, was funded by my grandfather, Melchior, in 1941. And from day one, we are totally devoted to Freisa grape, and I think it could be very interesting to have a blind tasting with Freisas, because it's a very let's say plastic variety that can be made in many different versions, depending also on terroirs.
So let's talk a little bit about the grape Freisa. Like we read in the textbook that in the 19th century, Freisa was one of the most popular Piemontese grapes, and close to half of the vineyard in Asti and Alessandria were planted with Freisa. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Freisa, well, the very first news that we have, very first document talking about Freisa are from 1517, so more than 500 years ago. And that document was funded here, close to Chieri, in Pancalieri, a very famous place worldwide for mint. But that was a very important and prominent city at the time. Freisa was and is still one of the very few real indigenous variety of Piemonte, because it's one of the few of them that never left Piemonte, with very few exceptions. But it was up to the, let's say, 20s of the last century, was definitely the most diffused variety in Piemonte, more than Barbera, more than Nebbiolo, more than Dolcetto or whatever, for many reasons. First, it's a very resilient variety, grape variety. It survived for so many centuries because it's a variety that had the chance and the ability to adapt to different climate changes, and that's the reason why it's a very interesting variety today as well, nowadays as well. And second, it's a very resistant variety. It's still one of the most resistant to the main illnesses of the grapes. So it's been a very popular variety because it was very productive, very resistant. It was usually planted in lower hills, so where the other in humid environments, where other different varietals used to struggle. Freisa was living there and producing. Uh, that's the reason why it was so famous up to the 20s. Then, once the winemaking started changing a little bit, and the wines moved from being easy, simple, samey, dry wines, semi-sweet wines, to the modern version of Piedmontese wines, Freisa had some struggles because it was really tough in the vineyard, but very complicated to be handled once in the winery. I don't know if it's the right moment to talk about that, but well, there are some geeky things to say about this, because Freisa is a pretty much complicated horse to be tamed once in the winery. Now we know many things more about the varietal, but at the time, the choice of vintners, for the majority of them, was to replace Freisa with easier varietals to be vinified, just like Barbera, for example. And Freisa Barbera blend was one of the most famous one because they used to balance tannins, acidities, and so on. So nowadays, Freisa represents more or less the 2% of the Piedmontese production. So a drop in the bucket of the Piedmontese wine world, but is rising again, let's say, because it's a very interesting, great varietal that makes very interesting wines, especially depending on how you use the grapes, how you where you plant the grapes, because it's very dependent on terroir. So Langhe Freisas are very different from the Cheiri ones and so on. I think that we will talk about this later, but this is the actual situation.
Italian Wine Podcast, brought to you by Mama Jumbo Shrimp.
It's been for many centuries a blending varietal that used to help many other indigenous Piedmontese varietals, like Nebbiolo, for example, or Barbera, as I already said. So, super interesting history, very long traditions, but at the same time, many big challenges in front of us.
I think what you said really ties things together, that it is easy to grow in the vineyard, but hard in the cellar. Like it is rustic, and you have to do a lot of things to like make a elegant or like make a good wine. But could you tell us like what does it add to the brand if it's blend with Nebbiolo and Barbera?
Yes, well, Freisa stands on two big main pillars: big tannins, big acidities. So Freisa usually was used to be blended with Nebbiolo to help with color, for example. Freisa and Nebbiolo are very similar, but we will discuss about this later, maybe. Talking about Barbera, the Freisa Barbera blend was very famous, very fancy, and very typical, because Barbera usually has a low amount of tannins, and Freisa is very rich on that. Freisa is a little bit poorer than Barbera, talking about anthocyanins and color. So Barbera used to help Freisa with color and with some structure. So, well, that was really common. Nowadays, the old men and women producing their own wines here in Piemonte sometimes still used to do that kind of blend. So the garagists still do the Freisa Barbera blend.
So if you look into your region, which is Freisa di Cheiri, so I look up the map and it's not overlaying with the Freisa di Asti, isn't it? So it's completely different. So you could not produce the Freisa di Asti in your vineyard, isn't it?
Yes, well, the DOCs, truth to be told, we are really close to the Freisa di Asti DOC area. We are one of the last villages of the Turin province that ends with the Castelnuovo Don Bosco village, very famous for its Malvasia, the Castelnuovo Don Bosco DOC. Well, maybe not that very famous, but still famous here. But the soils are very different. And this is something really interesting talking about Freisa because, well, with different soils using the very same vinification, the grapes picked up in vineyards in similar positions, cultivated more or less in the same way. Results are very different. The Chieri area gives usually a little bit more fruity versions of Freisa. The Asti one is going a little bit more towards acidities, and that's why usually Freisa d'Asti are made in the steel and sometimes, and pretty often, let's say, aged versions. Because terroirs are very different, and the Langhe ones are another time different from the previous two.
And how would you describe the soil compared with Asti and Langhe?
Well, here we have in the Chieri area, we have a pretty much calcareous clay composition, but more oriented to the clay side, let's say, which is great and has been great for many centuries because it's a humid environment. Talking about soils, and that helped Freisa to produce in a very good way without too many struggles, even in very warm seasons and vintages. The Asti one is a little bit more calcareous. It's sandy, a little bit more sandy. Definitely different, and the wines tend to be a little bit more austere, let's say. It's very funny to see how two Freisa wines, may be produced in 10 kilometers far. Vineyards are so different because, well, the mix of terroirs are very different, and with the end of the Turin heel starts the calcareous sandy composition, and it's even more funny because the Turin's side of the Torino heel, it's another time calcareous composition.
In terms of like geological era, are you having a younger or older soil than, for example, the Langhe?
I don't know if it's younger or not. I'm pretty sure that the Turin side is a little bit an older formation. So the clay here in the Chieri's side of the Torino heel, it's probably younger, and it's definitely more humid because we have many underground water. So, and that's the reason why usually planting vineyards recently became so complicated. Recently, I had to plant an hectare of Freisa vineyard in a small village close to Andezeno called Marentino, and we definitely struggled because we had lots of half rainy days, and a couple of half rainy days are enough to have a very humid terroir that stopped us from planting with the planting machinery. So it's complicated work here.
So for someone who has never tasted Freisa, how would you describe the taste of Freisa? And how does the taste compare with Nebbiolo?
Oh, that is interesting because it's really talking about young Freisas. well, they are very different from Nebbiolo. Young Freisas, talking about the Chieri ones especially, are definitely more oriented to tiny red fruits. So you got the raspberry, tiny strawberry sensation, very powerful. The first nose is very intense. Then you got that beautiful acidity that makes you willing to having the second and third and fourth sip, with the modern soft tannins that now makes even the young phrases very present in terms of tannins. Nebbiolo is definitely has that interesting, elegant sensation even in young wines. But it's what is really geeky about that is that Freisa and Nebbiolo are relatives. Professor Arna Schneider demonstrated that with interesting data and researches very recently. They are father and son. They are siblings. Let's say father and son. Funny thing is that we still don't know who's the father and who's the son, because we don't know the genetical mother, which is the very first time in history, probably. Usually, mother is the only certain thing in life, but not with Freisa and Nebbiolo. But they share the 95% of their DNAs, and they got something really similar. For example, talking about color, the Anthocyanins are pretty much the same. They are both based on peonine. So also the color of Freisa and Nebbiolo are very similar. The grape, the bunches are totally similar. But then also talking about tannins, the general amount of tannins is pretty much the same. The real big difference between father and son is the tannic composition, because Freisa's tannins are 50-50 grape seeds and skins. With Nebbiolo, the tannins are 40-80%, 85% in the skins. So the tannic approach is very different. So if in the young versions, Freisa and Nebbiolo could be similar, they are definitely more similar in the aged versions. And that's why usually doing some blind tastings is very funny, because Freisa and Nebbiolo are so similar, and sometimes we do some blind tastings with Superiore Freisa and some Barbarescos, some maybe not so young Nebbiolo, and it's really hard to guess.
It's really fascinating. But I think traditionally, Freisa di Cheiri is a sweet and sometimes like sparkling frizzante style of wine, which recently is evolved into more the dry wet style, which you described. And I think today you make it in both styles. Could you take us through like what is actually the traditional style of Freisa in your area, and when did the dry style of Freisa become popular?
Yeah, sure. Well, as I started saying earlier, Freisa was really popular. It was the Piedmontese people wine for many, many centuries. And the style was just one. It was called amabile. And amabile meant something in the middle between dry and sweet. So a wine with a low alcohol percentage, let's say 6 to 7 percentage of alcohol, and lots of residual sugars. And the reason behind that choice was that those residual sugars were the only way to balance the aggressive tannins of Freisa. You have to imagine a completely different approach in the vineyard. At the time, the most important thing was the amount of the production. So yields were crazy, and if you leave, let's say, 5, 6, 7 bunches per plant, it's pretty much impossible to get the right ripeness. So you used to have 11. The dry versions of Freisa were 11% of alcohol, so something pretty much that will be pretty much undrinkable today. So for many centuries, without the technology that we have now and without the right approach in the vineyard, the only way to have a pleasant wine was to bottle it with many residual sugars. So stopping the fermentation once 6 to 7% of alcohol were reached and leaving all those 80, 90, 100 grams of residual sugars into the wine. So bottled that way in springtime with rising temperatures, usually Freisa tend to re-ferment in the bottle. So the result was the production of bubbles, and that kind of wine that was very simple and easy has been one of the pillars of the Piedmontese dishes pairing, because it was perfect with the merenda sinora, for example. I don't know if all in the audience know the merenda sinora, but it's one of the classic traditions of Piemonte. It's our brunch, let's say, more or less. So you had sweet things, salty things. So like that Amabile Freisa was perfect for that, because you could pair in a good way sweet things, pastries and dry pastries, and maybe salami and cheeses at the same time. That was the perfect wine. In modern times, that kind of wine, when food and wine pairing became something, let's say, serious, that kind of wine wasn't definitely the right wine to be drunk during the meal, because it was what we will describe today as a dessert wine. So Freisa producers, us included, started producing the dry versions of that wine, but without the knowledge that we had starting from, let's say, 30 years ago, and that knowledge is the result of many collaborations with universities, especially with top players professors that we have here in Piemonte, like Vincenzo Gerbi. We learned many things about Freisa. We learned how to behave in the vineyard the right way, because for example, what is working with other varietals doesn't work with Freisa. Considering concentrations, for example, it's definitely not a good idea to lower the yields talking about Freisa, because you concentrate, you have big extractions, but you also extract tannins, and it's definitely something you don't want. So with no modern knowledge, we can produce many different versions of Freisa. The young and sparkling version is still one of the most loved, not only here in Piemonte, but also around the world, because it's a very modern wine. It's very historical, it's very traditional, but at the same time, it's very modern, because it's a great wine to be paired with many different kind of cuisines, many different kind of food around the world. It's a very light wine, which is definitely something nowadays. With climate change, all the wines tend to be more and more alcoholic. Freisa get the right ripeness pretty early, so we can definitely choose when to pick up the grapes, when to harvest. And so we obtain a 12.5/13 degrees of alcohol wine, very fruity, very young, super chillable, which is really loved. Not only here in Piemonte, but also in the US or in the Northern Europe or UK or in Hong Kong, maybe. So this is still a great thing here. Obviously, it's complicated, because it's a wine which is really loved by the traditional consumers of Freisa, and it's very loved by the young consumers, and that's definitely an interesting topic. But the let's say the middle age is complicated with that kind of wine, and that's why we decided to produce a young, fresh, fruity, easy, without any wooden aging kind of Freisa, which is called Surpresa. And it's a very interesting wine that we are pretty well selling around the world, even if our distribution is still very based on Italy. And then we have two Superiore Freisa that we produce with an approach which is very similar to the Nebbiolo one, especially the Nebbiolo designated to be Barolo or Barbaresco with less wood and aging, but still with long macerations. We're talking about 15, 20 days of maceration, which is a big deal talking about Freisa. But we can do that because we learn how to, for example, separate the grape seeds during the fermentation. That's why we can extract the tannins only from the skins, and the skin tannins are definitely softer than the grape seeds ones. And then with some 6-7 months only of French tonneaus, not new, used tonneaus, and then concrete, lots of concrete amphora, and a lot of bottle aging, we can obtain very interesting, sometimes bodied, sometimes elegant, sometimes we hope both long aging kind of phrases. So it's a beautiful varietal for that reason. From exactly the same grape and the same area, you can obtain a very young and easy drinking wine or a very elegant and long aging wine.
I think what you said is really interesting because, as you know, Barolo used to be like with residue sugar until like the middle of the 19th century. But I think the Fraser style is probably similar, but it went into a like longer time. But would you say that you are one of the first producer to produce a dry Fraser?
Oh, I think so. And the cool thing is that on my grandfather's labels, it was written Freisa di Cheiri, I think with 30 years of advantage before the DOCs came out. So in the 50s, early 50s, the name was Freisa di Cheiri. So, and that says how much my family pointed on our terroir, on our lands, and the promotion of the Chieri area about this. And definitely, we have been one of the first. I don't know if the very first, but one of the first making dry phrases.
And just a burning question is how you can separate the seeds of the wine without separating, I think, the skins. Is it by gravity or how does it work?
Yeah, by gravity, basically. Then we have special tanks that we use for that work. But on average, after 48 to 72 hours, the grape seeds separates from the pulp and the skins. The skins, which are lighter than the must, tend to go up, creating the cap, and the grape seeds are heavier than the liquid, so they tend to go down. So when we do the vinification process in order to maintain the cap humid, so pumping up the most, we take it from the bottom of the tank, and so at the same time we filter it from the grape seeds and we keep the cap humid. That way we manage to separate, let's say, the 65 to 70% of the grape seeds.
That's very smart. And you make 4 labels of Fraser. So the first one is the sparkling and lightly residual sugar one, and then 3 dry ones. So as you mentioned, is the Surpresa, the Barbarossa, and the Vigna della Regina. So we'll go over the Vigna della Regina the last, but could you tell us the difference between the other 2 wines?
Yeah, the truth to be told, the Frizzante is not that sweet anymore. It's a dry wine. we have 5 to 6 grams of residual sugars that we leave there on purpose to get soft sensation and not a bitter sensation at the end of the sip. But it's definitely a dry wine nowadays. Very fruity, and it's beautiful because the promise when you taste it, so the promise at the nose is of a sweet wine, but then when you taste it, it's a dry wine. So it's a beautiful wow effect, talking about frizzante. Talking about surpresa, which is a Piedmontese dialect word that means surprise. And the reason behind that name is that talking with a very famous restaurant man in Torino that was asking us for a dry, still Freisa for many years when we told him, man, we've finally made your still young Freisa. He went, oh, che sorpresa. So what a surprise. So my father decided to keep that name. It's funny because nobody is pronouncing it the right way in Italy, because it's people pronunciate super Freisa or surfreisa, but never surpresa. The let's say Anglophone ones are saying it the right way usually because it's similar to surprise. That's a very young and easy, still young Freisa, stainless steel only, just a few hours of maceration more than the classic frizzante one, in order to get the same fruity and easy, beautiful sensation at the first nose, a very light body, but definitely a gastronomic wine because the tannins right there come out very, very intense. So it's a wine that calls for something to eat with, and it goes greatly with many of our typical dishes. But not only, I'm thinking about the Asian food in general. That some of the classical Asian dishes goes great with surpresa, in my opinion. And Barbarossa, the first of our two reserves, is made with the grapes of our oldest vineyards, so the ones that are 40 years old or more, so with slightly lower yields, but with a great ripeness, very soft tannins. They are here in the Chieri side, the vineyard. Those vineyards are in the Chieri side of the Torino Hills, so where the soil is very rich, it's super clay based. So the result is a pretty much muscled kind of Freisa, budded, not that much, still with a good acidity, but definitely the highest in body, talking about our production. We name it Barbarossa because Barbarossa was the name of a very famous emperor, German emperor, that almost destroyed Chieri, and that's definitely not a good reason to dedicate a wine to him. But the thing is that during his campaign, he decided to save the vineyards because probably he thought to stay here for a long time. So he knew, he and his armies knew that in order to have a productive vineyard, you require many, many years. So they decided to save all the vineyards, and that's the reason why we decided to dedicate a wine to him, and also because this is a wine that it's definitely similar to a kind of soldier, an emperor. It's something very strong and powerful compared to the definitely more beautifully feminine wine, which is the Villa della Regina one.
Okay, so let's go to the Villa della Regina, and so it is basically from the royal vineyard of the Savoy family, and that's been in production since 400 years ago, but abandoned since the Second World War. And in 2003, in collaboration with the Italian Ministry of Culture Heritage and the Piemonte and Turin governments, you decide to restore and replant this vineyard. Could you tell us about this story and what you have learned from this experience?
That has been a very crazy and beautiful journey for us because, well, you introduced the story. Villa Regina is a beautiful place on the hill that overlooks the Turin city center, and it was built on the Roman style villas because it was built for a Savoy's prince that was a bishop before being a prince, and so he used to live in Frascati near Rome. And right there, the royal villas are definitely smaller than the average Savoy's ones, but with a very big agricultural part. And Villa Regina was made as an exact copy of his house in Frascati up on the top of the hill that overlooks Torino. And the identitary element of that villa was the vineyard. So for 400 years, that place has given grapes and wines to the royal family and the court. Then it was bombed during the Allied bombing of the Second World War. The villa was hit and almost destroyed, and same for the vineyard that was abandoned for 50 years. As you correctly said, the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, which owns that land, started the rebuilding of the villa in 2000. In the early 90s, they took 10 years to rebuild it all, and at the end, or almost at the end of their work, they called us to have an opinion also about the replanting of the historic vineyard. It's a beautiful story because when we went there for the first time together with my father, we were invited by them, and so they welcomed us up where the vineyard was at the time, and they told us, well, thank you for coming. We definitely are willing to replant the historic vineyard. We said, well, that's cool. Where? And they went, okay, right there. And they showed us a forest, a jungle grown in 50 years, right in front of the Turin city center. So we said, okay, guys, thank you so much for thinking on us, but well, no thanks. This is definitely something too complicated to us. Yes, we are a very historic winery, but we are really tiny. So I don't know if we can do that. We don't know if anybody can do that. So we jumped into the car, and we are 20 kilometers far from the company, from the winery. 5 minutes later, we started saying, well, we're not going to do that, but just figure out how cool it would be having a vineyard right in front of the city center of Torino. But well, too complicated. 5 minutes later, we're not going to do that. But well, just imagine how important it could be also, not only enologically speaking, but also touristically and culturally speaking, having a vineyard within the city center of the capital of one of the most influent wine regions of the world, like Piemonte. Well, but no. Well, it's too much bureaucracy. This is too complicated. So no. Then we arrived in the courtyard of the winery. We called back the architect and we say, okay, let's do that. we changed our mind in half an hour, and it's been complicated, but just like every great adventure, but beautiful because we managed to cut the trees, reshaping the hill and replanting the original grape variety that was planted right there by the Savoys. So, and it was Freisa. So together with the help of Professor Arno Schneider and Vincenzo Gerbi, we also managed to select the original clone planted by the Savoys at the time. So we planted the two historic clones of Freisa right there, and a couple of experimental ones to see how they could behave right there. The end of 2004, let's say, the planting, the replanting in 2008, the very first unofficial vintage. We picked up 10 quintals of Freisa that we brought to the University of Turin to make some micro vinifications to understand how to handle those grapes, because we were used to produce that young Freisas. We were starting in the early 2000s experimenting on aging, Freisa aging, but nobody was aging Freisa at the time, or let's say very few people, very few wine producers were aging Freisas at the time. So Professor Jarby made 10 different microvinifications, and at the end of the experiment, he strongly recommended to produce a long aging kind of Freisa right there. So 2009 was the first official vintage. We produced something like 4,000 bottles. The extension of that vineyard is a little less than 1 hectare, so pretty low yields, but a very complicated environment to work with, very, very steep. And then the vineyard has been planted in the historic way, so the 16th century ways, with the rows very close to each other. So no machinery can go through the rows. Everything is handmade right there. 2009 first vintage with the name Vigna della Regina table red wine, because Torino wasn't included in any DOC discipliner at the time. So we said to ourselves, we've done the 95% of the work. Let's try to do the final 5%. And we took a couple of years more to change the Freisa di Cheiri DOC discipliner and include the vineyard of Villa Regina, which is at the borders of the DOC area into the Freisa di Cheiri DOC area. So from 2011 vintage, we can produce not only one of the few urban wines of the world, but also one of the very, very few also having a DOC appellation. It's a long aging Freisa with completely different characteristics from Barbarossa, from the other Reserva, because the soil is different, because the exposition is different, because the microclimate is slightly different, and the result is a very different wine, definitely more focused on elegance than body, definitely pointed on spiced sensations, tobacco, leather, that kind of sensation, black pepper. It's a beautiful kind of Freisa, pretty much unique, and probably that's the reason why we are here today.
Yeah, it is always an emotional wine for me. So I'm drinking it right now, and having listened to your story, it make it even more emotional. So for me, it's like really in an insane amount of floral elements to it. Like you have violet, you have rose, you have moss, and so on. But what stands out is that besides the floralness, that it's not rustic, it's very vertical, and the tannin is reactive, but it's not reactive on the tongue, it's reactive on the gum. And then a standout part of the wine is that the flavor just sits in your mouth and then it refuses to move away. So you do not have a high concentration of flavor, but it is very long and very persistent, and it's always the same plateau. So this is a very special wine for me, and really thank you for your family to make to revive this vineyard and make this wine. Thank you. Really special because all the flavor is just staying in the mouth like at a constant level that is very hard to imagine like other varieties or other wines can do this except Fraser.
Thank you. Well, this is that has been a great journey to us, and we discovered many things more about Freisa, because, well, as I told you, we know much more about the varietal nowadays, but probably not everything. And that kind of Freisa helped us discovering a new facet of that beautiful grape varietal. I can say that is a very emotional wine to me as well. It's probably the very first project that I led from day one, once working in the winery, because I graduated in Lowe's. I studied completely something else, and then I started working in the company from the day after of my graduation. So it was my destiny. But it's so emotional to me because we saw the renaissance of a place. We saw the renaissance of a vineyard, which is always emotional, but that specific vineyard, which is so important for the Turin's people. So we helped in transforming the city. And as we are so linked to Torino and to its lands, that has been for us the chance to leave our mark on the city and on Piedmontese production. So we tried to write a tiny page of the Piedmontese wine history, and it's something really beautiful because it's a place that you can go and visit. It's open to public. Everyone can go right there and see that beautiful landscape on the Turin city center from a vineyard. Sometimes when I send around the world the pictures of the Vigna della Regina's vineyard, they ask me if it's Photoshop, but it is not, because it's a really unique environment. So it's a tiny piece of the Turin's transformation as well. That a city that has been perceived like an industrial city for many decades, and now from the early 2000s is starting being perceived like a enogastronomic city with beautiful restaurants, beautiful wines, and a great history that makes Torino so unique in the world.
Yes. So Luca, besides, we know that Vigna della Regina is one of the most important urban vineyards. Being the president of the Association of Urban Vineyards, is there other significant urban vineyards in Italy that we should discover?
Oh yes, we have a few great places to visit. Talking about urban vineyards, the association was born in 2019 because I invited in 2018 in Turin all the other urban vineyards that I found out on Google, and maybe from some recommendation of friends that have seen something like this around the world. So we created that group of crazy people, crazy urban vineyards around the world, and we have many interesting other vineyards in Italy, but also in Europe and out of Europe as well. Talking about Italy, we can talk about the Milan's vineyard, the Leonardo's vineyard, so the vineyard that Ludovico il Moro has given to Leonardo da Vinci has a payment for the realization of a tiny thing that he has created on the other side of the road. So the Last Supper, which is probably one of the most beautiful and important masterpieces of the Italian history, and that thing was created, what was paid with a vineyard, and that vineyard has seen its renaissance during the exposition. So the 2015 Milan's Expo, it was planted with the original grape varietal that Leonardo da Vinci itself planted in the mid-16th century. So the Malvasia di Candia Aromatica, a beautiful place, very famous recently because it has been bought by Mr. Arnaud. So now it's a private place, but it's still a beautiful vineyard that I hope it will stay public for visits, because it was visited by more than 100,000 people every year. Then we have Venice with two beautiful vineyards, one in the lagoon of Venice, run by an association called Laguna nel Bicchiere, and another one in the San Francesco della Vigna monastery, really close, right in the middle of Venice, close to the Arsenale area, to the Biennale area. A stunning place run by monks for many centuries that now is in the good hands of the Santa Margherita company, right in the hands of Alessandro Marzotto. A great place to be. They started producing their own first wine last year, and I can't wait to taste it because it's something very unique. Then going down, we have Siena, we have Rome, we have Palermo, we have Catania vineyards. So Italy is completely covered by historical urban vineyards that had their renaissance recently or from a few years. Talking about the ones out of Italy, very quickly, Paris with the Montmartre vineyard, Barcelona that has Cancalopa up in the Tibidabo area, run by great people with inclusion projects. So a great place to be. Then places like New York that has its urban vineyard in Brooklyn, in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. A great project, in my opinion. This is definitely not something not historical, but it's a carbon footprint zero place where people can hang out and have its drink with the landscape of the city behind, and so many others more that are joining us.
Well, so thank you very much, Luca. I think if you share with us the webpage of your association, I will share it with the group so that we can learn more about the vineyard. So it's really fantastic to have you here, and I think we all appreciate your work and that you put it in such a easy to understand manner that I think every one of us would love to drink a bottle of Freisa tomorrow.
Thank you. I really hope so. The website is urbanvineyards.org.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I think I'm going to close up the room, but because clearly you guys can talk forever. A very geeky question. Hold on one second. Just one quick question. Can you, Luca, give us an overview of, a little bit in terms of numbers, like how many bottles do you produce, how many labels, etc. Just the production volume and so that we can kind of contextualize the size of your winery.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Stevie. It's a family-run business. It's a tiny winery. We produce more or less 80,000 bottles per year, split in 10 labels, and 6 of them are Freisa-based. So as I usually say, there are so many Freisas producers. We are probably the only ones that live with Freisa. So the 90% of our production is based on Freisa. The 4 that we mentioned, then we have a couple of rosé Freisa and also a white vinification, which is very interesting.
That's very interesting, actually. I've never even heard about that. So Charlotte Ho agreed that Vigna della Regina is a super emotional wine. I couldn't forget it. Thanks, Luca, for sharing your passion in Freisa and history of Cheiri today. So I think that's it. It's a wrap. We've been gone for on more than an hour. So I will close up the room. But thank you so much to both of you. Alan, great guest. That was a great interview, and I hope we can get that out to many people as possible. So thank you so much. Ciao ragazzi, alla prossima.
Ciao, Stevie. Thank you. See you soon.
Ciao, Stevie. Thank you.
Ciao, Ellen. You're the best.
Ciao.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.